Hello team and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pierce. This is the Ukraine War Update Extra video giving you the extra tidbits and nuggets to get your teeth into to give you a greater understanding of the war in Ukraine. And I'm going to give you a greater understanding of my own idiocy because I accidentally muted the end of my second news video today. I apologise for my muppetry. And as a way of making amends, I'm going to just rehash my rant that I had, and I was ranting. It's a shame because it was a good rant. I felt it's a good rant based on a very sad state of affairs, which is Russians bombing the civilian architecture, spiritual architecture, the cultural architecture, and um, basically trying to break the spirit, I guess, of the Ukrainians, whilst claiming it was something else. And I called out a few of my Russian sort of voices, pro-Russian voices, pro-Kremlin voices in the threads, because I think you start defending this, you don't call this out when it happens, and you keep diverting the attention elsewhere to talk about, oh, look how horrible Ukraine is, blah, 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 blah. Like, no, no, no. Do you defend this? No, no, no. I don't want to listen to that. Do you defend this? You need to really show us what your moral fiber is, what your moral caliber is, by seeing how you justify this. And if you don't justify it, call it out. Call out what the Russians are doing, what your own nation is doing, because let's face it, we know you're Russian trolls. Anyway, this is, there's so much reaction internationally about this. I wanted to just concentrate on a couple of things that I talked about earlier. One of them was this idea that ATACMS missiles, these long-range missiles that the US are not providing, what wouldn't actually be an answer to this. It wouldn't stop something like this happening. These are fired from the air, fired from the sea. I don't think ATACMS are going to be particularly useful for that, but it is a weapon that I would like Ukraine to definitely have. And this was what the Washington Post reported. The number of ATACMS in American stockpiles is fixed, awaiting replacement with the next generation longer range precision strike missile called the PRISM or PRSM, which is expected to enter service by the end of this year, officials said. Lockheed Martin still manufactures 500 ATACMS each year, but all of that production is destined for sale to other countries. You could argue, well, just can you produce a few more to give to Ukraine? I don't know. I think there's got to be some decision at a more military strategic level that is, well, not even strategic, and at a practical level, which is these aren't the right munitions for you. You can actually do what you want to do with these with another munition and do it arguably better. It could be that, for example, the Storm Shadow does a better job of hitting targets without being intercepted as easily as, say, an ATACMS would. There's not enough stockpiles, etc., etc. So it's easy to have a go at people like Jake Sullivan, to have a go at the US military, but I'm guessing there is a reason for this. However, if the reason is this last one, which we're going to come to, then I have an issue with that. So let me continue. Since last year, the administration has cited several reasons for holding back. Refusal initially centered on concerns that Ukraine might fire the long-range missiles into Russian territory, escalating the conflict into a USA-Russia confrontation. Even supplying the weapons, Moscow has said publicly, would cross a red line. Okay, this is what I have an issue with, and it's not an issue with the US. This is an issue with Russia, actually. Although I think the US should provide these, because I don't think that's a red line, right? There have been plenty of red lines and they've been crossed and nothing particularly has happened. So I don't have a problem with crossing another red line. I don't think giving him ATACMS is going to start a nuclear war. But I'll tell you what red line was crossed. And it was a territorial line in February February the 23rd, 2022. There was a big old red line, and it's the Russian-Ukrainian border. And it was crossed by the Russians. And they had no right to do that. And they are committing to an elongation of an already illegal war with the annexation of the Donbass and Crimea. The illegal war where they had little green men under the command of people like Evil Gherkin, who's now in prison, Putin has admitted they were involved there, and it was kind of admitted to an illegal war. This is a continuation of that, but a massive escalation of that. Russia crossed a red line. And actually, we should be taking things to Russia saying, hang on, you cross that red line. We're going to give everything that Ukraine needs because you cross the red line. It's not about us operating to Russia's diktats here by saying, oh, you can't do that. Otherwise, they'll cross a red line. And then we get really angry. It's like, no. You can't do that because that's crossed our red line. And actually, we're going to give Ukraine everything they need now so that that red line is never crossed again, elsewhere, so that you're unable to perpetuate this kind of illegal plethora of war crimes. It just irritates the bejesus out of me. And I don't think there should be talk about Russian red lines, as in red lines dictated to us by Russia. No, we need to take this back to Russia. Let's not pander to their proclamations. Just so yeah, give them those things, or give them equivalents, or come out openly and say we're not giving them because actually it's not a good enough munition to give them, given that there are these other alternatives, and we're giving these other alternatives. Like, be clear with us. Don't just like obfuscate. So that is my position on that. And we can see, it's all today about Odessa. And meanwhile, Lukashenko and his best mate Putin are out and about. And this is what annoys me. So this shows the kind of sick minds Putin and Lukashenko have. After the brutal missile attack on residential buildings in Odessa and a cathedral where innocent people got injured and one person was killed, they visited the Kronstadt Naval Cathedral in St. Petersburg. Oh, right, yeah, we've blown up that cathedral. Don't worry, we're going to visit this cathedral. Hey, and speak to our grand wizards about, what spells they can cast on these unsuspecting, adoring. Oh, I want a selfie with Putin. Oh, that is just a sign of gross misinformation, disinformation. Just the whole thing just irritates me. While they've taken out the beautiful architecture and history involved in the cathedral at Odessa, and then this is the icing on a very poisonous cake. So the Ministry of Defense is a Google translation. The Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation reports that tonight the armed forces launched a strike with sea and air-based long-range precision weapons at facilities where terrorist acts against the Russian Federation were being prepared using unmanned boats. Hang on. Just having a look. No, just can't see any sort of factories and warehouses perpetuating. Let's have a look there. Yeah, I'm not sure unmanned sea vehicles can be manufactured in that place. Let's see. I wonder if let's have a look at whether the unmanned sea vehicles are being made there. Or how about should we? No. Oh no. That's an ornate picture from a cathedral. I don't think they're making unmanned sea vehicles in a cathedral. No, and I don't think that they are places where they were being manufactured in the Odessa region. Yeah, I don't think any of those places we've seen hit qualify as those things. And unless you are in any way doubtful that the Russians, aren't just talking absolute nonsense here, they continue. Foreign mercenaries were on the affected site. Were they? What were they praying in the middle of the night in the cathedral? Were they in the House of Scientists cultural establishment in the middle of the night? No, they weren't. And it's not that you were aiming for those things, but we accidentally hit the cathedral. We accidentally hit this cultural site. All targets planned to strike were destroyed. Unless you're saying we did destroy everything, but we accidentally also blew up a load of other stuff that we didn't mean to hit. Sorry about that. So when it comes back to those pro-Russian voices on my threads and every other thread, it's like, is this what you justify? Are you proud of your job? Do you go home in the evening, back to your husband or wife, and say, "Yeah, I had a good day today"? Yeah. Well, what do you do? Oh, I was spreading outright lies about a genocidal attempt, trying to blame it on the people that we attacked. Oh, nice. Was it good fun? Yeah. Yeah, we had some nice chat around the water fountain about how morally abhorrent we were. It was great. Yeah. Saw old Ivan. How is Ivan? Oh, it's great. Oh, he's tasked with trying to hit some American sites and let them know how wonderful all the people are who are trying to stop support to Ukraine. Meanwhile, also telling them how genocidal the Ukrainians are. Yeah, but we know they're not genocidal, don't we? Yeah, we know that. We know it's just disinformation. Oh, you've got such a good job. Yeah, thanks. Disgrace. So those people in my threads, I don't have a problem now. I've got to the end of my tether. You are morally abhorrent, unless you show me otherwise. Simple as that. You know who you are. Uh, and here's just another aspect of these kind of uh, these missile attacks. Here's a dog. Of course, you know we can talk about the death of humans, the death of animals, death of and the suffering, and so widespread. But here's just another manifestation. A dog is having a panic attack during a Russian missile strike on Odessa. The dog and its owners are sitting in the hallway. It's considered to be a safer place during attacks to stay between the solid walls, far from windows. Um, Many Ukrainians and their pets had spent countless hours in hallways since the full-scale invasion began. Um, yeah.
Что ты тут? Не трусись. Все, не трусись. Трусится. Тихо, 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 тихо. Боже, бедолага. Все, тихо, тихо, тихо. Тихо. Ну, лежи. Лежи. Тихонько. Тихо.
I don't know if you can hear in the background there are these deep booms and then the rat-a-tat of anti-aircraft as well, I think.
Все, успокойся. Тихонько. Ну, все. Тихо. Зайка моя. Не надо. Все. Тихо. Да, боялась. И я боялась.
Unless that's his teeth. That's his teeth, isn't it? His teeth chattering. But you have some deep booms in the back. You can't hear them too well there. It's just an example of the terror that such attacks bring. Now, that's just a very minor instance, isn't it? When you compare it to imagine living around these places where we have seen all this destruction. You look at that as an image, just just thanks, Russia. Because again, I think it's just to the left by those. You see those white balustrades or something there. Just to the left of there is where they put the finished spray paint on the unmanned sea vehicles, USVs, and just behind that picture, they load them with explosives. So that's good job, Russia. Well done. Right, moving on because I'm just annoying myself now. Here is an image or sort of video of a Humvee. This was doing the rounds yesterday. It's pretty impressive, as in and it goes to talk about. I was talking the other day about the amount of artillery ammunition that the Russians use compared to the Ukrainians, and why that doesn't translate to necessarily to death. So the pro-Russian, pro-Kremlin voices always come back at me and are like, well, if you say that most deaths are caused by shrapnel and artillery, and the Russians are firing far more artillery than the Ukrainians, why are you saying that the Ukrainians have a much better death ratio than the Russians? And it's because you look at this. Now, this is probably MLRS, but it doesn't say in all the videos I've seen where there's all the commentary by the videos that always say artillery, but MLRS is a form of artillery. So nonetheless, we have a Humvee. I think this is kind of spliced together. I'm trying to make sense of this video. But driving along here, supposedly there's a Humvee, and then boom, and you get a lot of explosions taking place. I just think the number of these explosions, given how close they are and the timing, makes me think it's possibly MLRS rather than that's not going to be artillery. Nonetheless, that's an entire salvo then of MLRS rockets that effectively does nothing. So it doesn't hit the Humvee as far as I can work out. The Humvee survives unscathed, although it is obviously close and pretty, you'd be absolutely scared stiff. Just incredible experience that would be, and not in a good way. But yeah, my guess is that is MLRS salvo on a Humvee, and then it survives. Now, how many rockets I don't know, but you know, good 20 rockets have not achieved anything there, and that's what happens. So when you're talking about ammunition shortage and the amount of shells that or rockets that the Russians need to sustain these kind of attacks, and the same with the Ukrainians, that looks more like a mine there, but it carries on driving anyway. Uh, you know, the Ukrainians don't use as many of these multiple launch rocket systems. They do have some, and they do use them, but they have. I mean, just look at these fields to give you a sense of how many shells are thrown into opposing territory. In this case, this is almost certainly the Russians peppering these fields, and the Ukrainians, on the other hand, prefer to use a greater proportion of um, guided munitions. And we saw in my news piece this morning talking about laser guided artillery shell using a Stugna to laser guide it. So go and check out my first news video this morning to show that. But anyway, I just thought this was interesting bit of footage to show the amount of artillery that's thrown at different targets to try and hit them. And then this Humvee is, you know, the cat of nine lives here. It carries on driving, and there you go. It survives to fight another day. But yeah, I think that we've got plenty of evidence, you know, even if it's just looking at fields and how absolutely covered in pockmarks they are. That's the image. Just look at that and say, right, why does the number of shells fired not correlate with the number of deaths to the other side? Well, because there's 300 shells fired there and no evidence of anything getting hit. Um, so, you know, it's not, yes, most people die or are injured from shrapnel from shells, but not most shells hit. And it appears that that the Ukrainian artillery has far greater accuracy than the Russian artillery. Okay, the final thing I'm going to talk about today is rather a short set of topics. This is another piece from Tatarigami in the Russian doctrinal booklet he's got hold of that actually rehashes pretty much very well, I can see World War One, World War Two doctrine here. In this thread, I discuss tactics from the captured Russian manual, recommendations for countering an enemy operating as tank and mechanized columns, with a specific focus on analyzing the section titled "Hugging the Explosion of One's Own Shell." Shells. The Ukrainian maneuver, referred to in the manual as hugging the explosions of one's own shells, aims to minimize the time gap between artillery preparation and the infantry reaching the trenches, capitalizing on the defenders' delay in manning their positions. Infantry, tanks, and BMPs begin their forward movements not after the artillery preparation, but during it. Infantry and armored vehicles aim to get as close as possible to the targeted area, considering the limits of safe distances. After the artillery, so here we have, you know, tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, infantry getting through, you know, minefields and towards the Russian trenches here. After the artillery fire is shifted deeper, the task of supporting the assaulting unit is taken over by armored vehicles. This is all about peppering the Russian trenches with artillery. And this kind of goes back to what I was just saying, actually. Peppering the Russian trenches with artillery to support an attack. And it's closing the distance between hitting them and then attacking. So actually, you want to be attacking really close to when these artillery barrages are fired. And this you are able to much better do with precision guided munition. So, danger close and all that kind of stuff, you are more likely to be able to attack very close to the use of precision guided munitions. So, literally, you can call in the coordinates and be somewhat confident that, hey, I'm attacking a trench that's only 50 meters that way, and I'm going to call in the artillery because they are going to hit that because it's laser guided. Whereas if you're walking it in, hey, I don't want to be 50 meters away from that trench because I'm going to be hit by my own artillery. So it depends what artillery munition you are using, but the idea is to close that gap between um, attacking, well, calling in the artillery, preparing the trenches in terms of preparing your own artillery and hitting the trenches in preparation of you attacking it on foot and in vehicles. So anyway, uh, as I was saying, infantry, tanks, BMPs begin their forward movement not after the artillery preparation, but during it. Infantry and armored vehicles aim to get as close as possible to the targeted area, considering the limits of safe distances. After the artillery fire is shifted deeper, the task of supporting the assaulting unit is taken over by armored vehicles. Infantry continues its advancement forward under the cover of armored vehicle fire. So these guys take over from the artillery. The continuous fire prevents defenders from targeting the attacking infantry. The assaulting side aims to prevent a response. Defenders and artillery face constant fire as attackers advance. Short intervals between artillery shells hinder defending units firing from trenches. The key to successful actions lies in the coordination of efforts among all attacking and supporting units during the shift of fire deeper into the defense. To counter this tactic, the Russian manual recommends the following approach. There is always a limit to how close attacking units can approach the enemy under artillery cover. This is due to projectile dispersion and errors during artillery preparation. This goes back to what kind of artillery or what kind of munitions you are using and the kind of artillery. Do you have an old D20 that's got a knackered barrel, in which case, yeah, I don't want to be particularly close to where you're aiming at? Or are you using a brand new Panzer 2000 with a precision guided munition, in which case, hey, have at it, and I'll continue charging this trench. This is due to projectile dispersion and errors during artillery preparation. This limit safe distance boundary from one's own shell burst is approximately 300 to 400 meters. As soon as the infantry approaches the defending units at the 300 to 400 meters, the artillery supporting the attack will shift its fire further. This gives an opportunity for the defending forces to re-establish their firing positions and begin engaging the attacking infantry. The manual recommends leaving 2 of the 3 machine gunners in sections of trenches or positions that are not targeted during the artillery bombardment, while the rest of the soldiers take cover in a fortified area during the shelling. After the artillery preparation ends, machine gunners open fire, covering the defending units as they assume their combat positions. Based on experience, a trained unit can fully occupy their defensive positions within 1 to 2 minutes. The objective of the defending units is to prevent the enemy from reaching the first trench, forcing them to lie down before the front line and begin to retreat. The key importance lies in the effectiveness of the fire system and the proper utilization of available firepower, which is why you want to be hammering those positions. If you've got good drone intelligence, then you know where the machine gunning positions are and you can hammer them exactly with the artillery. And it's about taking out enemy artillery as well. You don't want to be doing this attacking under artillery fire, and that's been half the problem in the last, well, certainly in the opening week of the counteroffensive, which is why they're spending so much time trying to take out that artillery. In summary, both sides are constantly refining and developing counter tactics and with varying degrees of success. It is evident that the Russians are consistently adapting based on the experiences gained on the battlefield. So thank you for Tatarigami. None of that is particularly, new or groundbreaking stuff, but it's just communicating what the doctrine is. But it's also the importance of precision munitions in these cases and really good aerial intelligence for the attacking forces. So there you go. Anyway, that's today's video. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much for your support. Please excuse my technical issues this morning. I blame it on the fact that it's holiday time now and I have children around and they should be seen and not heard. But unfortunately, they are heard way too much and they are pandering for stuff all the time. And, you know, that makes doing videos somewhat more difficult and making sure I have buttons pressed or not pressed and things done or not done and whatever. So apologies, but hey, that's real life. Thank you so much. Take care. Toodle pips. Speak to you soon.